Welcome to the Lifeline, a production of Simply BJE. The goal of this podcast is to build, inspire, and to empower our listeners through conversations on business, leadership, and mental health. We invite you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at www.simplybje.com/the Lifeline. Now, let's tune in for today's episode. Yo. Top of the day, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this episode of The Lifeline. We're your host, life coach, and motivational speaker, Bo Powell, social media and influencer and owner of the For Real brand, Lindsberg Petway, and yours truly, leadership coach and mental health advocate, Barry J. Elliott. You can visit us at www.simplybje.com/The Lifeline and on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and now YouTube. Once again, we are favored to have businessman, entrepreneur, and forward thinker, Mr. Frederick Bussey, joining us on our panel. Welcome, Mr. Bussey. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you today?
Glad to be here.
Doing great.
Doing well.
Doing great. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So let's dive into our conversation. I'm going to ask each of you, basically, tell me how each of you are entrepreneurs in your own right? So tell me a little bit how you got into this whole entrepreneurial journey. How did this start for you? Don't be quiet. None of y'all shy.
Well, I'll start. My entrepreneur journey started by seeing other entrepreneurs. I remember I was 12 years old when I had the first opportunity to work with Mr. Griffin. Mr. Griffin was a neighbor that lived across the street, and he had a landscaping company. And he would watch me cut my mother's grass. And one summer, he approached my mom and asked if I wanted a job. And of course, my mom said yes. He said, well, he needs to be ready at 6 a.m. So that summer, I worked from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. all summer. And then my next opportunity was, I saw this young man that was dating my sister. He was very fly. He had these nice slacks and shoes. I was like, wow, what does he do? And he had a full-time job, but he had a painting company. And he said, you want a job this summer? I said, sure. So he would pick me up in the morning, drop me off at this house, whatever house he had, contract he had gotten, and I would paint all day. So I became his worker, and he was the initial entrepreneurial. So when I seen that, I said, okay, I want to step into that. And I had the opportunity once I got to college where I started For Real Productions, and it was more of an entertainment opportunity, but I saw a need. And as most entrepreneurs who are successful, they see a need. There was nothing to do in Alabama, at Alabama State. So we created For Real Productions, and we used to throw parties every Wednesday night. Wacky Wednesdays, college night, ladies free before 10, and it was very successful. And from that aspect, I stepped into concert promotion, and I even wanted a record company. I wanted to be follow the footsteps of someone that's not so famous now. But you know, he went to Howard and he did some of the similar things, but I had my aspirations to create a record label production company. So I saw it at a young age, and then when I had the opportunity, I saw the need to fulfill entertainment purposes at Alabama State University, and I was very, very successful with it. So that was my first opportunity with entrepreneurship. I always said I would never work for anybody, but I ended up graduating and becoming an educator. And it sparked back up about 7 years ago when I got back into the automotive world.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump out because mine's going to be pretty short. I don't have, you know, I didn't grow up with from a line of entrepreneurs. I didn't see it. Nobody in my family, business owners. I mean, nobody. I don't even think anybody in my church was business owners. It's funny. I just was starting to think about when you asked the question, what sparked it, and I think for me, in many ways, I think it may be kind of a trauma response of just having to. I was raised very strict. Couldn't go anywhere or anything like that. So I think what attracted me to entrepreneurship was just the freedom. Being able to call my own shots, do my own thing. I tried to do the corporate thing, and I think it almost killed me. It almost took away, my passion and drive and stuff like that because you have to ask to take off and stuff like that. So for me, I believe it was just the attractiveness of being able to build something that you can call your own and having that freedom was what really led me to my entrepreneurial journey.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm just curious just to hear a little
Yeah.
bit. You said that corporate world almost killed you. Talk a little bit about that because I think that's powerful.
I mean, it's the best way I can describe it is it's kind of like putting an eagle in the cage.
Mm,
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 If you
that's good.
if you leave that eagle in a cage, I mean, it becomes conditioned. That's the environment that he can never fly.
Right,
Even if you let open the cage, it's just going to stay in there. We all know the
right,
story about
right.
the elephant. You put the stake.
Mhm.
That's how they train them in the circus. And after a while, they take the stake out and it doesn't move any farther than that rope would let them. So for me, that's going into corporate world because I went on a journey of self-employment entrepreneurship. Decided to go back to corporate when I got my kids and was there for 15 years plus years. And it literally almost took me out, I believe,
mm,
wow.
because, you know, in the corporate world, you process work.
Mhm.
As an entrepreneur, you create work.
Right,
You
mm,
don't get paid to show up as an entrepreneur. You get paid to produce. And we think
right.
we get paid to produce in the corporate world. And unless you're on a straight commission job, you can be at the job for 4 hours and still get paid for doing nothing,
Yeah.
just for showing up.
mhm,
you know so that's when I say when you have that desire, maybe you feel like you've been called to entrepreneurship and you're confined to a place to where you can't really express it.
Mhm.
It could take you out.
Wow.
It can literally condition you to surpass or not even go after what your heart desires.
When you said it almost killed you, what the word that leaped out to me was suffocate. It
Yeah,
was that's why I asked that question.
sure.
It's like it just sucked the life out of you. So that's
Yeah,
why
I,
I
I,
asked.
I had to literally, I had to leave. I had a conversation. Things were getting tough, and I was contemplating leaving corporate America, and it wasn't the right timing yet. But a few months later, I was talking to my spiritual father. He says, "Look, if you don't leave, I'm gonna push you out. You
Mhm.
got it's time for you to go." And because it was literally um, messing with my well-being, my psychological well-being, mental well-being, all that stuff. So um,
Wow.
and most people say, and you went to entrepreneurship because that's that can wear you out psychologically and mentally too. But I'm cool with it, because it's mine.
That's a
Yeah,
powerful story. Wow.
yeah. Before he jumps in, when you said it's like being an eagle in a cage, that struck a nerve for me because that's how it was when I was in education. Because I was in education for 18 years, and yes, I was helping kids, but I always made that statement: I would never work for anybody. But I
Mm,
never pushed myself to get back into working for myself until I was kicked out of education. I mean, literally, like kicked out of education and going on several interviews trying to find something. And God had just closed that door, and I had to, uh, basically create my own. I didn't even realize that that was a similar story until you said having that ego in the cave and just listening to somebody else telling you what to do, when to clock in, when to clock out, when you could leave. It definitely, and if you're an alpha male, that definitely can lead to some trauma. Definitely.
yeah, yeah, 100%. I think it resonates with me as well. I had jobs coming out of college, not corporate, but worked retail in several different instances, and that was the dead end for me. So when I was looking, I shared a little bit about my story last week. When I was looking to pursue the career in music, and I ended up buying my commercial cleaning franchise. I worked that for about a year, and I would go and do those jobs in the evening or whatever. And I remember when I left, I gave my 2 week notice, said I was leaving, and that sense of freedom, even though initially when I left, I was barely making enough money from those contracts that I had. I think I was making about $1,200 a month at the time, My rent was like $300 a month. I used to live on peanut butter and oatmeal and spaghetti and broccoli. I had the same thing every day. I had
Wow.
just enough gas to get to my jobs and come home. I used to spend most of the day chilling in the dark to keep the light bill down, watching Law and Order marathons. But eventually I got in a couple of the contracts and started to be able to get more breathing room, and it kind of took off from there. And even in that time, I wouldn't have traded it for the world, not having to be, at someone else's beck and call. And like, everybody's not made for that. I think even when I was growing up in rural Mississippi, not I was similar to you, Bo. Didn't know any entrepreneurs, didn't know any other real business people, really. But from the time I was 12 years old, I was taking my dad's lawnmower, going around the neighborhood, asking neighbors to cut their yards in the summer, raking leaves in the fall. When we would go to camp meeting, I was the tent master, so I'd sleep in the tent at night and make sure everything was taken care of and looked after. So I always found ways to find money, and to be able to create that value. And it's a different type of mindset, you know, than the average person.
Right.
Bo, you shaking your head. That resonates with you. Talk to us.
No, I just, like you said, everybody's not built for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because the uncertainty of it usually takes people out. Not knowing where your next paycheck is coming from. I mean, because you have, especially when you're getting started, you have moments of great plenty, and then you may have, like, the Pharaoh and Joseph's dream. You had 7 years of plenty, then you have they come eat it up like it's never happened. And
Right.
for some people, just psychologically takes them out, and they got to go back to corporate. There's nothing wrong with that at all, but it takes a lot of mental toughness to stay out here and endure, and to stay at it long enough to win. And
Yeah.
most people just don't. I don't believe most people fail in entrepreneurship. I think a lot of people just quit too soon.
Mm.
If they would just
Yeah.
keep going, they would finally see that breakthrough and start to see things happen. So that's when I was saying that everybody's not really built for it.
Yeah.
That's why I
So,
was
You have
shaking my head.
you have those moments of darkness, those moments of what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Am I the only one that believes in it? And I keep talking about for real, and is it really for real? and But then you find something that reminds you, push you, and it just gives you that spark, or you just go to sleep and wake up the next morning, really, and you got new hope and new opportunities to get up and make it happen.
Yeah. There's
no, go ahead, please. No.
No, I was just going to say it's very true. We have to remind our clients, that business is not linear. And there is this, especially these days, people talk a lot about, making such and such a month, $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 a month. And people are really, really fixated on those numbers. When in reality, a lot of that stuff is outside of your control until you get to a certain stage of business. And even at the highest level, we you hear the quarterly earnings reports of these major companies, and they talk about they're down, had a down quarter, it's down 3%, it's up. We're talking in those cases, it's millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And so if you get attached to those things so your sense of self-worth or your belief that, oh yeah, I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna make it just as solid as a corporate gig, you're not necessarily gonna be the one that's cashing a check every week or every month for many months on end. There's going to be times like that, and you've got to be able to have the mental fortitude to stay the course. We call it mental variance. You can't allow that to dip below a 8 on a scale of 1 to 10, because um, what's funny is that the level of stress that you endure as an entrepreneur, that's the thing that most people can't handle, because you're juggling multiple things. If your mental variance gets down to like a 4 or 5, you're basically in shock. You can't even remember your own name. So through
Been
any
there.
given day, so through
Been
any
there.
given day, you could be, going up and down that scale. You have to have a level of resilience that supersedes what the average person has. You're not going to be able to do it if you are one of those people who's posting those memes online talking about your coworkers, stealing your food from the refrigerator. That's the least of your worries
Right.
as an
Right, right.
entrepreneur.
Trying to have some food in the
Yeah.
refrigerator.
Do that again.
Trying to have some food in the refrigerator.
That's right.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow.
Yeah,
So,
hey,
so
you
gentlemen, tell
find
me.
yourself fight. Hey, you find yourself fighting the air like my man and Boys in the
Oh man. Oh man. You took it there. Wow. So tell me, each of you, just kind of tell me, how did you? Because you're talking about mental toughness. How did you keep yourself from giving up? Because I'm sure you had moments where you're like, I'm out here, I'm done. Or maybe you didn't. But
Oh
how
man.
did you keep yourself from quitting?
One is I'm a person of faith. My belief in God definitely was at the core of it. Somewhere inside of you, I think as entrepreneurs, somewhere inside of you, you have to have this fundamental belief in yourself. And you have to have this dream, even if it seems vague, right? The number one word that any entrepreneur will tell you is that they are in pursuit of freedom, right? Freedom to call their own shots. And what's crazy about it is that that sort of freedom is actually more of a slavery than most people can handle, because you are now subservient to your employees and to your clients and prospects and to all the demands of the business. The money that you're making requires certain investments to be reinvested. Your time, your mind, your bandwidth of your mental bandwidth is consumed with thinking about your business to a certain degree until you get to a certain level. And so the thing that, if I had not had my faith, that would have definitely carried me over. I think the other thing was the level of inspiration. So there was at my lowest point, or one of the low points, this is before I got married. I was living in my aunt's basement. I was running my business remotely in Alabama from Atlanta, Georgia. And I went through this period where at the time I had transitioned from the creative side to the business side of music. And I was working as a publicist, a junior publicist. One of our first clients was one of the Real Housewives of Atlanta. So I'm doing that. I'm still semi in the music industry. But in 1 week, I hydroplaned my car into a ditch on my way back to Alabama, followed by losing my job as a junior publicist. Then I lost my business in Alabama. My contracts got voided, all of them. And then my car got repoed the following day. So I'm laying in my aunt's basement on the bed and I'm thinking, I'm a failure. You know, I'm 30 something years old. I'm single. I want to be married, but I'm thinking there's no way a woman's ever going to marry me. I got no money. I got no car. I got no job or business. And what was funny was I had a friend who loaned me his car, and he was going to sell it to me, but I didn't have the money to buy it. So he said instead, well, just take $200 and invest in this multi-level marketing thing that he had. I don't even remember what it was. I didn't do anything with it. But the thing that came out of it was that they started sending me these success magazines. And at the back of the success magazines, they had these CDs, these compact discs. I don't know how young our audience is
I
going to
remember
be,
those.
I still have some compact discs.
brother. So they had these CDs, and so there were interviews of these entrepreneurs. So it was Tony Robbins, it was Les Brown, it was Darren Hardy, it was Jim Rohn. And so I'm hearing these things, and at the time, this is before YouTube really was popping off like that. So you had all this entrepreneurial content that people have today. And so when I would hear it, I would drive to work. And at the time, I got a job working an hour away at this correctional facility for youth. And so I'm driving there and back, and at night I'm listening to these CDs, and it would set my brain on fire, and it would just motivate me, and it would just I could see it clearly. I could touch it. I knew it was possible because I could see that other people were doing it, and they were telling me. And there's a level of insanity, delusion, I would say. You have to have an otherworldly imagination when
Yeah.
you're an entrepreneur, because you have to be able to envision the success that you're not currently seeing in your state. And I was in the basement of my aunt's house, like, there's no way, you know, logical way this is going to happen. I remember my mom and my aunt would ask me all the time, like, so what are you going to do after this happened? And I had to tell them, I don't know. You know, I had just started a window cleaning business on the side to kind of start scraping up money. I'm trying to take buckets on the bus. You know, they're not letting me. I'm trying to call taxis, and they're like, "You can't take that water in the bucket in his car." You know, and so I'm literally in mental anguish. But I started listening to these CDs, and it started giving me that vision. And that was when I started discovering these different books, blogs, things like that. I just started to live in this alternate reality from the one I was in. And I started understanding what was possible and started feeding my mind and shifting the way that I was thinking as an entrepreneur. And ultimately, it paid off.
Wow.
Kept me from quitting. The belief in it, um,
Hmm.
the belief in what you started, the belief in the success that you have seen. Definitely faith in God. There have been many nights where I cried and I prayed and really asked God and just kept my face in his hand. And then someone would give me a word, or someone would say some of encouragement, or um, I would just push past the fight. Losing my career really pushed me into entrepreneurship again. It was something that I hadn't thought about doing because I was caged in my career as an educator. But once I got into it, it's a faith test. I believe it's just like walking with God. Each and every day we get up, we pray, and we ask God to deliver us, and we have faith. But faith without works is dead. So, getting through it was a balance between my belief in God, my belief in what I was doing, having an understanding that God called me and put me in this position, and communicating with people when it gets too hard. Not necessarily a therapist. I haven't put that title on anyone, but having someone I can just release. I used to tell my teachers always, when you leave, flush the toilet and then come back and re-educate these kids. So just doing that, getting my mind clear. Because teachers would hold on to things, and that student be in his fourth year there, and they'll still be saying what he did years ago. So just flushing the toilet, getting rid of that, pushing past it, and working out. Honestly, working out has always been one of my releases to help me recalibrate myself, my mind, beating the weight up, and then just trusting God.
Flushing the toilet, what an
Yeah.
analogy. Relevant,
Yes, it's relevant. Yeah, because that kid. I mean, when you got some challenged kids, we never want to say a child was bad, but you had some situations. I always tell them, just flush the toilet. I mean,
Mm.
just get rid of it, come back, and we'll do it again.
Oh, that's good. That's
Yeah, I'll definitely say, being in the gym definitely helps me keep my
Mm.
sanity. It's
Mhm.
been huge. What kept me from quitting, I'll just have to give it all glory to God, because I probably quit a million times in my head and even tried to, in reality. And then, after you take a step back and you realize, what you're here for, I think just revisiting why did I decide to take this journey? Getting back to those, and you know, I as Brother Bussey was talking about the CDs and the books and stuff. Many times when I was found myself kind of in those weak moments, it was because I hadn't stayed connected to those surrogate mentors, reading, listening to the tapes, and the CDs and stuff. And so, you know, if you have never been around entrepreneurship, seen it, there's a conditioning that you still have to work through and overcome, even after
Mm.
being out here
Wow.
as an entrepreneur. If you've been thinking employee, for the last 30, 40 years, you're still kind of unlearning all that stuff
Mm.
at the same time. So you have to continue to, wash your brain and to transform your thinking, so you can endure, long enough to win. Because it's it's going to happen if you're doing the right things and you're consistent with it. It's eventually going to happen. It may not happen as fast as the next guy, but eventually it's going to happen if you stay connected, you stay to it. I mean, that's just the principle. So for me, those have been, what has helped me. Just going back to why am I doing this? Um, Getting connected to those things to reprogram or to program your thinking in the right way. And just trying to find some success in another area, which for me has always been working out.
Yeah,
And allowing that to kind of feed over into, um, other areas too. So,
that's good. I want to take a turn for a moment. Of course, we know we had an inauguration this week. So tell me, how do you think the next 4 years is going to impact small business owners, entrepreneurs, if any way at all?
Hmm. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I'm still researching. I don't know. I'm gonna keep my faith in God, and that's been my perspective with all administrations.
For sure.
I'm a kingdom citizen. Be ye in the world, but not of the world. There might be some good that comes out of it that we can take advantage of if you have knowledge. The people perish for the lack of knowledge, and there's going to be some things set up for business owners and opportunities. So we just have to find that knowledge.
I mean, for me, my perspective is as normal, nothing's changed. I mean, yeah, there's somebody different in the White House, but I'm an entrepreneur. I came out here to have a sense of control over my future, my destiny. Um, could there be some laws enacted that could impact, small business owners? Absolutely. However, at the same time, I mean, there have been, this administration's been here before. There's been other administrations that have been here. So as an entrepreneur, I try to not to get caught up in all the chaos and all the static noise that's going on, because I have a lot more say so in how my life's going to go and how my business is going to go. Um, so I know for a lot of people says, well, how can you say that when there's so many variables that go? But after you've been out here for a while, you kind of notice the patterns of the business that you're in, and you learn how to navigate those things, and you just have a certain sense, and of how things are going to go, and you start to you move that way. So you look at those things. We have a new administration. Okay, great. We'll see what comes down the pipe, and we'll adjust and we pivot. That's what we do,
Yeah.
as business owners.
Yeah, you
Okay.
can't. I think the trap of thinking that the president
Yeah.
or whoever's in charge is going to be the determining factor in your business automatically means that you don't have enough control of your business, right? Whenever I hear so-called successful people complaining, I I laugh. I think, so are you really as successful as you say you are? Because if you're held hostage by the whims of the government, right? And really, I think more of that is a tactic to appeal to a certain demographic or whatever the case may be when it comes to maybe social media, stuff like that. Ultimately, if you're an entrepreneur, especially like the ones that we like to work with, you have a dominant mindset. You're thinking, I understand that I have to eat what I kill. And therefore, the more I kill, the more I eat. That doesn't sound like a very faith-based approach, but business business is a battle, man,
Battle.
and so you can either enter into battle thinking you're going to win, or you can be hoping that somebody else is going to come save you. And other than God, nobody's coming to save you, right? And even God is requiring us to step into the tools and the gift that He's given us to be able to utilize those things. And so you can't, again, it kind of goes back to mental variance. You can't allow yourself to be swept away by the wave of the news or whatever's happening. Um, we teach our clients that chaos is just opportunity, and so the key to getting wealthy is to optimizing chaos, and whatever that may be. It's whether it's internal, external. It cannot be a factor in how you move or how you make decisions. You just got to learn to adjust, like Bo was saying, and navigate that space, but navigate it with the mindset that I'm going to dominate the next hour, I'm going to dominate the fundamentals of my business and I'm going to dominate wherever I am. And you do that, you're going to be successful, and you're going to be successful at a much higher level than those around you who are kind of swept by the tide of sentiment, political or otherwise. And it doesn't mean, that we don't care about, our community and things like that, but I think you're in a much better position to lead when you are not subjected to the mindset that woe is me, or somebody has to be in a position to be able to have the financial fortitude, the mental fortitude, and just the clarity about how to navigate through these challenges that you have. That's why we're entrepreneurs. We're problem solvers. So you got to have that mindset.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. I'm gonna start with Pet Wade. I'm gonna come back to Renaissance Man. I'm gonna end with both. This is the last question. If you could give one bit of advice to someone who's a budding entrepreneur or thinking about entrepreneurship, what would you say to them? So I'm gonna start with you, Lensberg, and then Renaissance Man, and then Bo. You.
It's a good question. I have several answers running in my head,
Of course
but
you do. You wouldn't be you if you didn't.
but but Frederick just tapped into something, and I would say there's a gazelle that wakes up in the morning, and there's a lion that wakes up in the morning. Both have to run. One is running to get away, and one is running to eat. Which one are you?
Wow.
Yeah, I couldn't put it better myself. Uh,
Which
I, w-
one
I
are
would
you?
say that the thing that if you're having hesitation, you need to learn to recognize fear, and you got to learn to turn fear into fuel, right? Action conquers fear. Just get into motion. You're not going to know as much today as you're going to know tomorrow, and the only way to learn it is to be not to be afraid of mistakes. A lot of times, people are trying to engineer their lives flawlessly, and so they don't know how to pick themselves up. They don't know how to recover from thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. They don't know how to lead themselves or lead other people. The only way you're going to do that is if you get into action. But as you move, the universe cooperates. God is waiting he rewards those who are in action.
Mm.
So that's what I would say. Don't stand still, because the only thing that happens to people who are standing still is that they're moving backwards.
That's good. It's real good. Man, I would say, just practically speaking for, aspiring or budding entrepreneurs is to start part-time. That's what Brother Bussey was talking. He was working while he was building.
Mhm.
And so because, figure out what problem you're going to solve and learn entrepreneurship while you have a job, that security. Because it does take a different mentality in order to be an entrepreneur. So start there. You don't necessarily have to, you know, heard people, I mean, we've heard the stories, I cashed out my 401k and I left and, things happen. But there are a lot more failures than successes with that. So, start part-time, but have a strategy, be intentional. That would be one piece. And the next thing would be to find a mentor.
Mm.
I know one of my mentors says, or a consultant, which who can help you with that, which will give Brother Bussy an opportunity to share his story. But one of my mentors always says, you always ask a question, is there a shortcut to success? And most people say no. And he says, that's not true. There is a shortcut to success. It's called mentorship. And if
Mhm.
you have someone who can mentor you, they can help you avoid a lot of the pitfalls that could, you know, to detour you or deter you or maybe even destroy you from your entrepreneurship. So that would be my piece of advice for that. So I guess that was the final question, right? So
Yeah, I do want
just
to
bef-
ask you this question though.
yeah,
It may open up a can of worms, but I want to ask you, is it okay to start a business without knowing everything?
of course. I mean, yeah, I mean that's absolutely.
And
I
the
mean,
reason I ask that question is because a lot of times I think people think they need the perfect conditions to start the business or to live their dream. So I want to make sure we
You'll
hit
never know
that.
everything.
You'll
You'll
never
Yeah.
know. I mean,
never
we
know
live
everything.
life without knowing everything. We wake up, we learn. I didn't know everything about running a production company. I just knew it was nothing to do. Let me throw a party. That turned into hiring a DJ. That turned into hiring waitresses. That turned into hiring bouncers. That turned into ordering liquor and bottle service. That turned into, okay, let me do a show. I did Bernie Mac. So you don't know anything, but you figure it out, or you get a mentor. And yeah, so I think you can. But you
Yeah.
got to have some passion for it too.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think so. Definitely to Bo's point, I'm gonna come back to the point about finding a mentor or a coach. But I think it starts also with knowing yourself, right? Like Bo mentioned the fact that he felt like an eagle in the cage. He knew he couldn't stay there, right? He was
Mm.
fighting himself to stay in that cage. And so part of that is understanding that your own nature, but also understanding your gift. Each of us has been given a special, unique, and powerful gift. I actually wrote a book about it called Breaking Orbit, where it talks about discovering your gift and your unique superpower. And a lot of people, when they start a business, they start it because they're trying to figure out, well, what will work or what can I do? And that's why we see, especially in our community, we see a lot of the same types of businesses. When in reality, when, when you look across the landscape of business, there are so many types of ways to be able to create value and to create wealth. And a lot of times we stifle ourselves because we don't step into and lean into that capacity to be able to create a business that's at a higher level because we're only staying on what we know. And to your question, if you only stick in what you know, then you can only do what you've already done. And so you have to step beyond that. It is into uncharted territory. But those who chart that territory are the pioneers, and that is where the fortune is made. And you can't be afraid to say that, right? There's a lot of things you're going to have to confront. And that leads me to the point about coaching. I didn't get to talk about that, but that was a key point of me being able to keep going. Coaching communities, masterminds, places where I was able to be supported, seeing other people that are going through challenges and overcoming them, having their victories, being able to borrow their joy, their belief at times when I didn't necessarily have it that week. And then having somebody who can walk side by side with you, step by step, through every phase of the journey. Somebody who can help you to avoid common mistakes, somebody who can help you to find the shortcuts, as it were, right, to success. So those things are vital. You don't have to make the mistakes. One of the challenges that people often face is that, they have this mentality, even when they first begin, but even later on, that, it's not worth it. I'm not paying for it. And there are all these different stories about coaches or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, an advisor who can walk with you, who can create a space for you to be able to bring all of your thoughts, your questions, your concerns is vital because entrepreneurship is lonely. Most business owners don't have anyone that they can talk to. You can't talk to your employees about your struggles. If you do, your employees are looking at you like, well, I should go find someplace else to work. Things are falling apart around here. you
Yeah.
Most people can't talk to their spouse or their family because they don't really understand. I'm blessed to have a spouse who's been super supportive, right? But she's not in the business space, so she doesn't necessarily understand all the ins and outs. She's just supporting me. But to have someone that you can go to with your questions and with your concerns and get that clarity and understanding is super important to being able to maintain the momentum. Because to Bo's point, most people, it's not that they fail, they just quit too soon. And if you had just kept going, your breakthrough, your next leveling up was waiting for you on the other side of that biggest challenge because chaos is simply opportunity.
Mm.
That's rich,
Very
man.
good.
That's
Very.
rich. So with that being said, before we conclude, Brother Bussey, let everybody know again what you do and give an opportunity to do that as we open up this episode of the podcast. But let everybody know what you do, how they can connect with you, even how they can get the book. Just found out you wrote it. You're an author too, so how they can do that. So let everybody know how they can reach you.
Yeah, it's great to be with you guys again. 2 weeks in a row. So I feel like I'm at home now, you know. I might just
We have
pop
that
up on the
effect on
Zoom and hang
people.
out.
We have that effect on people. We
It's
do.
it's to get in contact with me, yeah. So the book Breaking Orbit, Rip Out of the Regular by Unearthing the Power Within. It's available on Amazon.com. You can just search there. Breaking Orbit, Rip Out of the Regular by Unearthing the Power Within. Discover your superpower, what's unique and powerful about you. People have said it's really been a transformational book for them, and writing the book was transformational for myself as well. If you want to get in contact with me, you want to know what we do, people ask, well, are you like a business coach or a life coach? Well, I run a business advisory, but I like to tell people like this, if you want to go from New York to California, most people would jump on a passenger airplane and maybe they'll take a first class ticket or maybe they'll just get a passenger seat somewhere on the plane. But then there are those who want to take a military fighter jet with diplomatic clearance. And the difference in speed is that a passenger jet goes about 600 miles an hour. But a military fighter jet like an F-25, it's going 2,000 miles an hour. And so there's not all the bells and whistles, but it's about the clarity and being able to get there. So that's the difference in the level of how we help business owners to be able to create that momentum in their business. You can get in contact with me Facebook, Frederick Douglas Bussey, Instagram, Frederick.Bussey. I'm on X, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, same thing. You can find me in all those places. Just look me up, Frederick Douglas Bussey. And I have a Facebook group for entrepreneurs called the Seven Figure Circle $1 Million Mastermind. We have all kinds of support and resources in there, master classes and things of that nature, talking about every aspect of business to be able to support people with those resources.
And
So,
TikTok is back. So you can join my TikTok page now.
yes, I probably have about 69 followers on TikTok, but you could be number 70. So I'm over there, Frederick Douglas Bussey at TikTok as well.
And one more time, the title of that book, Brother Bussey.
Breaking Orbit, Rip Out of the Regular by Unearthing the Power Within.
Gotcha. Y'all go Amazon, buy the book. Make sure you reach out to our brother for the services you may need. And that concludes another episode of The Lifeline with your host, BJE, Lindsberg Petway, and Bo Powell. Now, don't forget to check us out at www.simplybje.com/The Lifeline and on social media. Look, we're on a mission. We want to bring light and life into your household. So join us and let us hear your feedback because it's all about bringing life to you on The Lifeline. Y'all take care.
Thank you for listening to today's episode with host, business expert, and life coach Bo Powell, social media influencer and entrepreneur Lindsberg Petway, and leadership coach and mental health advocate Barry J. Elliott. Join us next week for another impactful conversation on The Lifeline. God bless.